Hey everyone, my name's Rob. I'm one of the developers on Legends Reborn. I'm going to go ahead and walk you through one of the decks we're going to have available for the alpha coming up. This time we're going to go through the Ramp and Go deck. Deck built around the idea of basically accumulating the maximum amount of energy and cards at all times so that you can do more stuff per turn than your opponent. Let's go ahead and start by looking at the hero for the deck, which is our druid hero. We picked the druid hero because all of her hero cards have to do with granting energy or cards. We've got Wellspring, which grants just 70 energy right off the bat, no cost. The Land Resists, which is 25 energy per creature that your enemy has on the board. And then we have Natural Selection, Invigorate, and Weather the Storm, which all grant some kind of buff to a creature or a small pool of creatures and let you draw a card from the main target of that spell. First creature we're going to go through is the Broken Tooth Cutthroat. This goblin has a passive ability to, at the start of your turn, any friendly creature that is below 65% of their HP gains a stack of Dealer, which is a buff that the next time that creature attacks, you draw an extra card. This is probably your most consistent source in the deck for drawing extra cards. Because that keys off of attack, we've got Battle Sisters and Blitz, which are both attack triggering cards. Let me skip a little bit down here. We've got Benevolent Pact, which is another cheap card that lets you draw one additional card from a friendly creature of your choice for 10. And you'll notice a lot of the stuff in here costs 10 or costs 5. These are a lot of very cheap buffs and debuffs, like Giant in the Distance, which just causes area nervousness against your opponent, which just reduces their chance significantly to crit, or Flame Discipline, which grants Flame Armor, which is just a buff that sits on one of your creatures and deals out passive damage when they're attacked. The reason for all these 10s and some 5s for energy costs is, if I go here to the next creature, Wreck Diver Hippocamp, whenever a enemy creature is destroyed, grant 10 energy. So you'll see a lot of cheap buffs and debuffs to try and capitalize and let you keep doing lots of things whenever this or some of the other energy effects trigger. The Wreck Diver Hippocamp itself is particularly magic damage heavy. So we've got Walking Dead Man and Magical Assault, which are both magical attack triggers. We've got another cheap buff in here in Frost Armor, just to utilize some of those chunks of 10 energy that come in, as well as an Area Grant Adrenaline, which will reduce the cost of your basic drag attacks on creatures to further let you do more stuff with the additional energy that are coming. So because the drag attacks are cheaper, you'll be able to do more of them with the free energy that you're getting. We also threw in one instance of heal here because every deck should have at least a little healing, so that if a particular creature that you're banking on for your strategy, like the Goblin or the Hippocamp, starts getting low, this is a pretty solid heal. Next up is the Gluttonous Mimic. The Mimic, when it is destroyed, will grant you 50 energy. So the idea behind the Mimic is to kind of make it a glass cannon so that they can't ignore it, and at some point before the end of the game, they eliminate it, giving you a big burst of energy to do stuff with whatever you have left. Because of this role as kind of a glass cannon where you're trying to either direct people to not attack other things or punish them for attacking the Mimic, we've got a lot of armors here. Parasitic Armor, which will poison people that attacks. Counterattack and Magical Counterattack, which once again just do damage to something that is attacked with it. Thorns, which is a damage reflect. These are all there to where you can either, if they seem content to attack your Mimic, you can put these various buffs on the Mimic to punish them for following through and killing it. If they are not attacking your Mimic and you'd like them to, you can put those on creatures other than the Mimic to increase the likelihood they will attack the Mimic. We've also got a nice source of pinpoint here, which just guarantees critical hits, which is great for high attack creatures like the Mimic. After the Mimic, another source of energy for this deck. When this creature attacks, there's a 35% chance to grant 5 energy. That's why all of the real cheap utility cards we have in this deck are 5 and 10. For 5, which is one of the cheaper cards in this deck, this is just a break resistance, which will help with the physical attackers like the... which will help with your magical attackers, like this Guidelight Wisp and the Hippocamp. This just increases the amount of damage they'll take from magical attacks. We've got a trigger magical attack here that also couples with a paralyze, as well as a trigger magic attack that couples with a blind. As you can see, this is probably the strongest actual attacker in the deck, but it uses magical attack. That's where all these relatively expensive, but once again, this deck focuses on getting more energy, magical attack cards come in. And then just to add a little more oomph to an already massive attack stat, there's a 75% magic spike. As well as, since you have so much additional energy, the only way to make that even better is if your opponent has less energy. This is a very cheap magic bleed, which will... It's kind of a damage over time poison effect type situation, but it affects your enemy's magic pool, or sorry, their energy pool, so that every time it ticks at the start of their turn, they lose 5 energy unless it's cleared. Last but not least, we have the Crag Runner. So when this creature attacks, there's a chance that it gets adrenaline for 1 turn, adrenaline being something that causes its attacks to be cheaper. Since you have so much additional energy, things that are cheaper just further increases the amount of stuff you can do per turn. A cheap source of paralyze to go with all the free energy you're getting. A trigger attack, relatively cheap. A trigger magic attack, which isn't as useful for this, but you will get it and be able to use it on the Wisp if you are attacking a lot with this creature because of the adrenaline causing the attacks to be cheaper. Same with the magic attack trigger off Hypnotize or Sweeping Darkness. All right, that has been the Ramp and Go deck. Thank you guys.